Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. So, Barry...
Well, we're back again.
We're back again. And last episode, you touched on that you had some addictive patterns in your relationships. And I said I was
Who,
going to
me?
put and I said I was going to put a pin in it and come back to it. So why don't you start off and tell us what you were referring to when you were talking about your addictive love affairs?
Yeah, I've got to be careful what I say out loud, I guess. Um, no, it's a teaching point. I use it a lot in my work too. The thing, and it's funny because as soon as I was talking about addiction and love, I'm thinking of the Robert Palmer song, Let's Face It, You're Addicted to Love.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was kind of like that in a way. And the funny thing was when that song came out, I was so like rocking to that song because part of me felt like, that's so true. It's so right. Not so. But I had this sense inside that it was like speaking to what I had been doing and choosing my relationships. And for a period of time, and it's funny because I realized looking back, in some ways, I spent more time out of relationship than in. So how could I be addictive to relationships? But the truth was, there was something about relationships that was feeding something for me. And really, if I boil it down, and I'm skipping a lot of stuff to get to this bottom line, just because we only have half an hour, we're not going to spend for 3 hours on this.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line for me was that I was basically addicted. One, and it's going to sound weird, one to being approved of, but at the same time not being approved of. It was this interesting thing I was doing inside myself because I didn't want to be at that time. I didn't want to feel fully in. Like I wanted to have one foot in, one foot out. And it sounds a little odd to say it this way, but this is what I was doing in relationships. I'll be fully in the relationship, but I wasn't fully ready to commit fully to that partner because one of my things also, my addiction was to being free.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this duality going inside of me back and forward where I would be in the relationship, but I sort of had my eye on the door. So both times there was an addiction to wanting to be in relationship, but also this aversion to being with one person only,
Mm-hmm.
because there was part of me thinking that this wasn't. We're going to say it this way.
Go on, Barry. We're on a track. Keep going.
No, because the thing is, and this is when I was a lot younger and not so wise, was the fact I could do better. That was the thing inside of me.
Mm.
The issue I was in was feeling like I was somehow playing down, even though I was absolutely in it and fully immersed. And the thing was, this addiction piece put the relationship as my primary thing above everything else. So my work would probably suffer generally.
Mm-hmm.
My other relationships would tend to be downplayed, like my friendships and family dynamics, and she would be the focus of my attention. And it wasn't out of control, is out of need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would be in a relationship that was smothering, frankly. And I know that I
Can I
lost
just ask,
relationships.
can I just clarify that point? Are you saying you
Yes,
experienced the other women as smothering, or you felt that you were acting out in a smothering way?
probably more the latter. I was definitely, because I was addicted. I was like
Yeah.
needing to be with this person because it was all the value I was getting was from her.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she was giving it to me, but I was believing that she was giving it to me. It was, again, this whole internal process I was going through. But it kept me invested.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a journey for me to really learn how to take my hook off and be able to walk free of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this subject of addictive love is fascinating. It's because it's what you just expressed, it's very common. And,
Hmm.
a lot of people do. They meet somebody new, they become sort of a little obsessed and infatuated, and they give up their friends, and they give up time with their family or their hobbies and things like that to just absolutely, sort of suck everything out of this relationship, believing that it's filling them up in some way. And that's part
Absolutely.
of, also what I teach is like, um well, number one, it's very unfair to your friends to be dumped. I know how that feels. You know, I have
Yeah,
girlfriends that make when they meet a man, it's like their friendships just fall by the wayside. And when if that relationship doesn't work out, all of a sudden it's they want you back. And you know, I say you know, you have to value your friends. You can't sort of drop people. And I was guilty of this when I was younger. I mean, I had a very good girlfriend who told me and it was good. It was an eye opener. I went, "Gosh, I'm so sorry. You're right. I am doing this. I'm just immersing myself into this relationship, and it's the be all and end all. And I'm not, you know, as you said, it was distracting me from my work and my other relationships. And so it's very, very important to stay independent within the relationships. But I'm also thinking about, you know, I call it well, it's that sort of what we're really pointing to is that same thing again. It's that codependency of needing the outside validation, something outside of me to fill me up. And when you are first in a relationship in that throes of newness and excitement, and it does feel very fulfilling, but it's
right,
short-lived too. It's short-lived, especially if the relationship isn't working out for whatever reason and um, you know, either you don't want to be in the relationship and you want to leave. You may stay in there because you think, well, gosh, this relationship is giving me so much. It's filling me up so much, even though I'm not happy here. Because of again that misguided in
mhm,
interpretation that other people fill us up. It's you know, it's not it's the we fill ourselves up. But also if the relationship is toxic, it's the same thing. Staying in a
right,
toxic relationship because you think that that love you're getting from that other person is coming from them, not from within you. And you just think, I'll die without it. I'll die without it. So I'd rather suffer and that is love addiction. That's absolutely addictive. Doing
yeah.
something that you know is harming you, but you can't seem to get out.
Was it's the thing that you feel like there's you're getting enough good stuff that it's worth the sacrifice of everything,
Mhm.
which is so bizarre to say it that way, but it's what it was.
Yeah.
And you know, I talk about in my work with coaching. I do use the term, you know, from Jeremy Maguire, "You complete me" as the catchphrase for codependency.
Mhm.
Is that sense of incomplete that I had without somebody else in my life, that when they were there, I feel complete, was a total trap and and also a total lie to myself because none of us are incomplete, but we pretend that we are.
Yeah.
And in relationships, I know I did this myself, which is why I'm so um, compassionate to my clients who've gone through the same thing. Is that I was very clear in hindsight, again, 2020, that I chose relationships that would choose me enough to make me feel full. But until it's the point where basically I was no longer of any use. I was very rarely the person breaking up the relationship.
Mhm.
It's always the one who created the situation where she would break up with me. And again, I controlled that. It wasn't like she decided to leave. No, I set it up where she would leave because a part of me had some belief inside that I couldn't be the heartbreaker to break, you know, couldn't break their heart by leaving them.
Mhm.
I had to make it so pissed off they would leave.
Okay, Barry, I love this. You were getting deep with you. So some of the tactics that you used to have these people
I
break up with you.
Hey, I definitely had a trail of bad relationships that I made the mistakes of doing bad things in them to them. I didn't cheat on anybody. I mean, just to be clear, I didn't do anything. You know, didn't wasn't drunk or addicted or any of that stuff. But I would be, in some ways, I would almost suffocate them. That smothering energy was almost like I would make them so much my one and only.
Mhm.
And again, exclusion of my own work, my own life, my own relationships, and my friendships, any of that stuff. That she would like get me out of here.
Yeah.
You know, and it was I mean, looking back, I mean, I'm laughing about it now.
Mhm.
But boy, I went through so much my own heartbreak because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know I wasn't mature enough in relationships.
Yeah.
I was so clumsy in my relationship choices and what I was doing in relationships. I mean, the mistakes I've made aren't in my book, so I didn't write about my stories in my book because it wasn't for I didn't have the permission of my partners, but it wasn't no, but it was really about the principles I learned from that and the work I've done since.
Mhm.
And having been single now for basically almost 17 years now, has been the biggest gift I could have given to myself, because it's mean the relationship with myself has been so fully invested and whole and healthy, because I haven't needed anybody else. The other part I also learned, this is something I learned back in 2007 and 2008, and this is from one of my teachers' work, is that I didn't understand for myself, and this is for David Adey's work primarily, is that for a masculine man, my purpose must come before my relationship. And
Mhm.
up to that point, I thought relationship was the pinnacle, was the highest point. So that's why I would always sacrifice everything else for the relationship. But the reality is knowing is that my purpose comes before the relationship, because I need to have a why that is independent of anybody else.
Mhm.
That basically is my driver, my fuel, my impetus to do things in the world. And any relationship I have won't take that away from me.
Mhm.
That was the biggest transformational moment in some ways in my life. I've actually gone on to add another layer to that because of my own spiritual journey for the last 30 years. Is that I would suggest for any true man who owns himself as a true, authentic masculine man, is in fact relationship comes third, because relationship to spirit comes first.
Mhm.
For me, it does intentionally. Then my purpose in the world, the work I do in the world, which is this work. And then third comes the relationship. And the thing about it is, I'm not making a relationship play third place to that. What I'm doing is taking the pressure off the relationship to fulfill the other roles.
Mhm. Yeah.
My relationship is not meant to fulfill my spiritual journey. It may create components for it, absolutely, but it's not to replace it. And nor is it to be my work. Although for some men, their partner and their family may become their purpose. Like they want raising a family, becoming a legacy for themselves can be their primary focus. Mine isn't that.
Mhm.
But that's the thing I had to learn. And for many, many years, that was nowhere on my radar. So relationship became the be all and end of my life. And boy, I screwed up more than one of those.
I mean, that's brilliant. I love what you just shared there, and it's so true, and I completely agree. I mean, for sure, having a purpose, greater than yourself, and having that spiritual connection, which is just so ingrained in me. It's just part of who I am. I don't even have to sort of, I don't necessarily think about it as something to pay attention to. It's something that's
Mhm.
living through me every single day. It's doing its thing, whether I'm aware
Yeah.
of it or not. Um, but what I was thinking about as you were sharing that, because I think that is so beautiful, about, a lot of people say, no, 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 your partner has to come first. And I get what you're saying. You're not saying it's third on the list, but you as an individual have to have those qualities, that sense, that deep sense of yourself, the totality of our being, that spiritual
Mhm.
human rolled into one, that has to come first. And your purpose in the world has to be in place, so that you're a full human being coming into the relationship, not that 50% coming in and wanting the other person to sort of complete a whole. No, you're coming in
Right.
whole, they hopefully are
Mhm.
coming in whole, and the relationship is, I call it, the third element, the third leg to the stool. It's like it's cohesive when all of those pieces are together. I For me,
Absolutely.
I was, but it's so funny when you were saying about being a little clingy. I was like, that would have I'd have been out of there too.
Exactly. Yeah.
My rising sun
We're opposite
Sagittarius.
sides of the conversation. Yeah. Opposite sides of the
I'm
conversation.
Yeah, I'm so sort of like, any type of entrapment it has me
Mm.
leaving or feeling
Right.
entrapped in that sense. But again, that addictive quality to love, I just jumped from relationship to relationship. I never questioned it. I was a serial monogamist. It was always like one to the other, to the other, to the other. And that
Yeah.
2 years that I spent alone, again, like you, I didn't take 16 years, but 2 years really, really,
Mhm.
um, discover myself, to discover my strengths. It was just such a gift, because I know I have people that I know that are jumping from one to the other, and they get in these relationships and it's not serving them, but they go, "Oh god, I gotta start again," because they have such a fear of being alone. They don't
Mhm.
see that being alone is a beautiful experience. It's so
Right.
enriching. I mean, I would recommend it for anybody. I mean, it was life-changing for me, because when I was jumping from one relationship to the next, I never gave myself time to see who I was outside of relationship, who I was, what my strengths are, like you said, what was my purpose in the world. And
Mhm.
all that came from not being distracted or being addictively in love with somebody. I really, boy, if anything, I addictively fell in love with myself. But not in an
Not a bad choice.
egotistical way, but just in a simple like, "Oh, oh my god, now I know you." And
Yeah.
once I knew myself, I was a whole different person in relationships. Not
Mhm.
so, willing to settle for negative behavior because of the fear of being alone.
The thing is, and this is part of the piece too, I mean, even though I spent a lot of time alone in my early years, there was always the desire, the need for me with somebody else. Because I think some part of me was raised with the belief always to look outside for love.
Mhm,
I think a lot of people are raised with that principle. So that the only experience of love happens when I'm with somebody. Someone was out there looking. Even though I spent a lot of time without finding anybody, which meant I wasn't feeling very much love. Be able to trying to find the love outside with somebody else, and when when the happiness got great, but it almost be like overfeeding, and then you end up blowing it up. So it didn't work.
mhm,
The work that say for since well, I've been in this work for a long time, but particularly the last 17 years being alone has been the biggest gift to myself. Like you were saying, for those 2 years for you, I just took longer. Um, Mainly because I was also building my business and writing my book and everything else. But that's the thing for me is that I had to really, no, I had to. I finally gave up fighting, avoiding myself, and started learning how to appreciate the person I am.
mhm,
And yes, even as a man, I can say that falling in love with myself was a key part of it too. Not from a place of like self idolization, but more about just self respect and self appreciation and self care, so that I didn't make bad choices as much as I used to.
yeah,
I didn't say I didn't make bad choices, just didn't make them as many times as I used to, and get better and better at that. So when I choose friendships, I choose relationships, when I choose business partnerships, my self awareness and also awareness of the environment is so much healthier than it was before. That I actually say no more often than I say yes to those things because I know that unless it adds to what I'm already doing, it doesn't serve me.
mhm, yeah, yeah. And you know what, you when you were saying that, I was thinking, we were both sharing, I mean, obviously, like I said, you a lot more time getting to know yourself. But I think I think a lot of us, you know, that are these, jump from relationship to relationship,
Hmm.
it is a great
Yeah,
distraction from really spending time on nurturing yourself and getting to know yourself.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing how many people I suspect don't have any relationship with themselves. In fact, they may even have a negative relationship with themselves where they actually don't like, they even hate themselves. I know I've had that with several clients where their image of themselves was so depleted because they kept looking outside for love and feeling like they're only valuable when they're with somebody,
Mhm,
that when they're alone, they felt like deflated, almost like, like the air going out of a balloon.
mhm,
And that diminishment is such, well, first and foremost, it's a lie because we're making up stuff about ourselves that's not true, but also it becomes a reason from which to become very reactive to the world around us. And so we don't necessarily choose from a higher place for love, for friendship, or anything. Again, reason I don't hang out with certain people is because that neediness, that hunger isn't healthy
mhm.
because it isn't turned within. And it is a sense that we really, as human beings, deserve our own respect, our own appreciation, our own love, because we're worthy of that.
Yeah.
And so whether or not somebody else loves us doesn't define who we are or how we are. It's
Mhm.
the real reminder to ourselves that we are whole, full, expressive, complete beings that aren't needing somebody else to complete us.
Yeah. As you were talking there, I started reflecting, I was thinking about teenage boys and
Hmm.
girls for sure, but I was thinking actually of, I know it's a bizarre sort of, segue here, but I was thinking about, these young boys that, have never been taught this. And
Right.
say that, and I say especially for boys, and it does obviously happen for girls too, the prettier girls get all the attention. But I think it's more wounding for a boy, that rejection from a girl, because the thing is, if you are not so popular as a girl, then you don't suffer the rejection as much as the boys that are not that popular or attractive, because
Mhm.
the boys are the ones that are expected to sort of put themselves out there first. So they're faced with a lot more of this, like, no, I don't like you, I don't want to go with you, or whatever it is. And I just, it breaks my heart. I feel like, why aren't we teaching this in school? Because our young teenagers are so looking to get that validation from their peers, from their partners, from whoever it is. And if we focus more on teaching them who they are already on the inside, that they don't, if somebody rejects them, it's not really, they're not rejecting
Mhm.
them. They're just, where's my little snow globe? They just got a lot of thinking in their head that says, again, usually from that, as we say, that first 10 years, like, oh, I don't want to be with you for whatever it is. So it's not personal. It's not an indictment that you're not worthy or you're unattractive or whatever. And I just think how much heartache, especially our young people. I think we tend to sort of, as we get a little older, hopefully we don't get so angry and so turn that rejection on ourselves. I think we get a little more used to, oh, hang on, this is just part of it, and but young people, where they're first figuring out who they are and they're so looking for that outside in, and they don't get that validation, it can really create a lot of damage.
Well, speaking as a former teenage boy,
Hmm.
um, I definitely remember in my own high school journey, said as I think I said before, that I was bullied in high school by the other boys, and I know for myself, I guess looking back, and it's funny when I think about it now, I had a lot more awareness than I gave myself credit for, because I didn't do the decline or the spiral that I know I could have done being in that position. But looking around at the other kids, and I've said this also in other conversations about how we have sex education in high school, but not relationship education, and certainly not self-relationship education. And yes, most boys are, because they're raised by men who were also boys before who didn't learn this either. Most boys are told to man up, to don't cry, to toughen up, suck it up. Don't, don't be a softie, don't be a wuss, all those different things. So most boys are not raised with a value system that allows them to have vulnerability. They're not raised with the ability to be really to be totally kind. In fact, a lot of boys, I mean, a lot of the guys become the jocks or become the sports type, because that's the one outlet that boys can excel at more easily without thinking, because most boys are physical based more than mentally based, in the sense. Although a lot of boys grow up to be very smart, but the idea, a lot of boys, they express through physicality, so sports, competitions, that sort of thing. And when they don't have success there, they can feel depleted. They can feel less than. They can feel
Hmm.
basically that they don't belong, don't fit in.
Yeah.
And so we have room to grow, definitely, to bring education into the high schools, into other places, and for families to teach their sons as well as their daughters to value who they are as individuals would be transformational.
Yeah. As again, as you were saying, then I'm thinking, those young boys that suffer a lot of rejection, those are the ones that are going to become addicted to love. They're going to be the ones that until they get that person to, accept them or be with them or validate them, that once they have that, they will become a little obsessive about the relationship. And it's usually, like you said, the jocks and the people like that are very, very attractive people who are, used to being having a lot of attention. They tend to sort of start, they don't tend to fall into that love addiction so much, because they have a lot of that attention already. And it ends up actually in that case being more of, objectifying women and just seeing them as a source of, whatever they want. And
Hmm.
and they are almost sort of afraid of commitment, because there's always something. It's the shiny ball syndrome, which is another show, but there is that,
Yes.
I don't want to commit to this because something better's coming along. But it
Hmm.
is those vulnerable young people that have had a lot of rejection. I think that once they get into a relationship, it has that addictive quality. It's like, I've got to hang on to this at all costs, because this is very rare and it might not happen again. And so they cling.
But it's almost like they're finding a water well, in a sense that they're finding somewhere to get replenished and get resourced. So they basically just It's like, if you're in the desert for a long time, when you find water, you don't just take a sip.
Mhm.
Like, so you almost drown in it. And I think in some ways that's what happens for love, for especially for people in general, not just men only. People in general who've been alone for a long time, who've been seeking that and needing that and
Mhm.
feeling desperate without it. So when they find love, they are going to become addicted. They are going to become smothering in a sense, because it's like they've had nothing for so long. Suddenly they feel like, the person in the desert who suddenly found water. It's not intentional necessarily,
Mhm.
but it's definitely something that happens because the person didn't have their own, uh, using the analogy again, water system with them when they were walking through the desert.
Yeah.
That's the work when you start to really build that self relationship. It's like being able to walk anywhere and have that source of love within you, not keep looking for it outside.
Yeah.
That's the transformation.
It is, and it's like it's again, it's that, intermittent reinforcement that creates the addictive quality. It's like we talk about the rats that, hit the lever to get the pellet, and if it's not always giving them the pellet, they tend to just obsessively sit there and wait for the damn pellet to come out and keep hitting that lever. And, the same thing in a relationship. It's like the jocks and the handsome guys and everything like that, and women, will the very good-looking women, they know it's always there for them. So they don't
Right.
have to have so much of that obsessive quality because they know that if they want the attention of the other of a partner, they'll get it. But the ones that have
Mhm.
low self-esteem, or they're not the popular kids, or they're not considered attractive, those are the ones that need more than ever to fill that themselves up from within. Right, so they're not so susceptible to sort of,
Right.
globbing onto a relationship and staying there when it's not serving them, so, yeah.
That's the real work. That's the
Mhm.
real work.
Exactly, this we'll always
Yeah.
come back to that, with it.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Yeah, so, how do you wanna finish this off today, Barry?
Well, I guess the thing I was saying again, because I went through the journey myself, is
Mhm,
definitely to learn how to navigate life from a self-centric place, not self-centered, egotistical,
mhm.
but self-centric place where we put ourselves first in our lives. Now, they can be challenging, I know, when you have kids,
Yeah.
but the idea of putting yourself first, because when you put yourself first, you have more energy to give and serve other people too. So it's not like you're taking away from everybody else. Again, not selfish, self first. Is really having the place where you care enough about who you are that you're willing to raise your own standards, and that way you raise the standards of everybody around you.
Mhm.
It's kind of that's the fundamental work, and it isn't easy, I know, because I've been there, done that. What I've learned though is that where I bring myself into life, I make better choices in my relationships, in my friendships, in my life, and all the things I do. And it's so interesting because it's not an ego position. It's just I know that's what it's about for me.
Yeah.
That I view who I am from a healthy, careful, caring place, and we all need to do that, frankly.
I was just about to say, it's so not selfish. Coming into
Right.
a relationship with holes that need plugging up is not fair on your partner. I mean, I know we all have some. I mean, I'm not talking about perfection by any means, but
Yeah.
to as we say, to come into a relationship um, where you don't come from that place of absolute sort of grounded, solid, knowing who you are,
Hmm.
seeking for those that sort of holes to be filled up. So it's actually a gift. It's such a gift to the other person. I mean, my partner will always say to me, he goes, I just love how independent you are. And it's such a compliment because I love how independent I am too. I really do. So it's freeing for the other person.
Right.
It's not doesn't have that sort of energy drain that when there's too much neediness in a relationship. I always say, be in the relationship you want, not the one you need or think you need, because it's
True.
empowering. Going back to what you said earlier, it's empowering to it's not doesn't mean you have your hand on the door all the time, but it's empowering to know that you are whole and complete as you are, and therefore you don't need to stay in something that's not fulfilling.
Right. A relationship is adding to who you are, not filling something you think that you're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a good one. We're ending there.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Right.
thank you again. This has been great, and
Oh,
I will see you next
lovely.
week. Bye,
Look
everybody.
forward to next week. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share
Right.
this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe
All
to our
right.
Relationship Mastery
Oh, no, I see.
podcast. That way you'll
It
get
does this
each new
weird thing. I have
episode
to.
fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.